Thank you so much. And let's just dive right in. So, Dr. Tingle, let's start with you. And as a professor, how did that spring semester shift go for you?
Yes, it was pretty radical. On March 11th, we were actually on vacation. The family was on vacation down at Port Aransas. And on March 11th, Dr. Anderson sent an email to the campus community saying, basically, another week of spring break, and then we're going to kind of figure out from there. And so, I mean, it was just a really like, okay, well, we'll still be teaching something, but how are we going to do it? And so that whole next week, the second spring break, was basically like kind of Zoom boot camp for us, and learning how to use the technology, how best to deliver it, depending on the format of the class and what the curricular elements of the class were. So it was just like a almost immediate about face.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, the big first task when we got back together with students was just showing them an ethic of care. Like everybody's in a weird place, and so you just need to know that this classroom is a safe environment, and that there are people here that love you and care about you. So right. that was the kind of initial launch back in.
Now you teach all grade levels at some point, right?
So in this semester, I had everyone from first years all the way up to graduating seniors. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So. And
I'm sure for first years and seniors especially, this was super weird.
Yeah, the seniors, I mean, losing graduation, I mean, obviously that story is not unique. And then a lot of them were athletes at Trinity. And so in this, if you're a spring semester athlete, you didn't get to have your last season, basically, a third or so of your last season. So that was really hard for a lot of the seniors that were athletes that are in my classes. It's just kind of processing through like no closure. So on top of not having a graduation and all the other things that everyone else didn't experience, this, kind of last hurrah for, I mean, some people have been playing their sport for 15, 16 years, and to have it end without you even getting one last at bat or one last, I think it was 4 or 5. There was some number of students who were at the Bell Center getting ready to get in the van to go to the airport to swim at nationals. So they had qualified for nationals, and Mr. King had to call and say, like, don't drive to the airport.
Wow.
Like, nationals aren't happening. Yeah. So again, this kind of culmination of your entire experience has been like, you finally qualified for the ultimate prize. And so, so a lot of them, I mean, it's hard for athletes anyway when they're done, right? But to have their finishing done in a way that they had no control over, some of them had some rough patches.
Now, from the classroom perspective, what were some of the challenges that you faced engaging each of your students virtually?
Yeah, so I mean, we had students, one of my students was in Vietnam, so 12 hours ahead.
Wow.
And so, I wasn't going to make her be up at 1 a.m. For her class. So we had to screen capture every class and really make sure that she was, so a lot of extra out of the classroom communication that I wouldn't necessarily normally do with her in particular. There was a handful. I mean, many of our students had, internet connectivity issues at the house. Some of it was, from a financial standpoint, the house doesn't have Wi-Fi or didn't have Wi-Fi before, or had, intermittent Wi-Fi, or in a couple of cases, they've got mom, dad, another, sibling in college, them, and then a high school sibling, all burning Wi-Fi in their classes and at their work all at the same time. So connectivity issues was a really big one. And then the other connectivity is like the, actually the community, right? And so that was a commitment that my team teachers and I made, that we were going to really focus on making sure that the community stayed together. So we did a lot of things pre-class, or early parts of every class session that we wouldn't normally do, like little pulse checks, something called a rose, thorn, bud. So, what's a rose in your life? What's a thorn in your life? And what's something that you're looking forward to? So just things that we wouldn't normally spend every class doing that, but people just needed to feel like they were in a community still.
Jen, so you are a physical therapist, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, how does that work? How does physical therapy work?
It's
remotely.
Crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm a pediatric physical therapist with early intervention. And so we typically will do a lot of handling and hands-on with the kiddos when we're doing an in-person treatment. But according to the early intervention model, we're supposed to be using a coaching model wherein we teach the caregiver what to do. And the idea is the caregiver is the one with the kiddo 24/7. I'm seeing a kid maybe once a week, maybe once a month, and I'm supposed to be coaching them with strategies to enable them to work hands-on with their child. But really the way that it plays out is the families or people who are less involved typically are letting you do everything when you're there in person, and then the other families that are more able to, they will do more when you're there. But now the shift has been they have to do everything. Mm-hmm. And so any kind of stressor that is going on in the house has become blown up times 100. And it's magnified to the point where, many of our families probably, because I mainly work on the south and the west side of San Antonio, so it's really a socioeconomically kind of, I don't want to say you're not, it's socioeconomically depressed or disadvantaged or whatever. And many of the people that I work with speak Spanish exclusively. So they're already kind of outside the dominant culture and living in the margins. Mm-hmm. So if they are living in a multi-generational household, and then they've got maybe, all their kids home from school, they've got all their family members in the house also because people have lost jobs or they're not going out to their jobs, then it's just completely untenable to have a treatment over Zoom, or we actually use Microsoft Teams, because they just can't, first of all, they can't focus on what I'm saying because there's noise distractions, but they're really, many of them are just thinking about how to get food on the table, how to, keep their kids from killing each other, how to help their kids do some degree of schoolwork. I mean, I don't like to think of physical therapy as a luxury service, like I'm joking about getting our brows done, but it becomes a luxury. It becomes relegated to that luxury because it basically breaks down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What do you need? You need food, you need shelter, So those are the things that take priority. And so I've just had to be living in this space where you're giving everybody, including yourself, a lot of grace and understanding. And compliance is a big thing in medicine in terms of, are you compliant? Do you take the medication as the doctor directs you to? Do you participate in therapy 2 times a week as the doctor directs you to? Well, you know what? It's not that these people are being non-compliant. It's that they don't have their basic needs met, so they can't follow this plan of care. It's no longer a tenable plan of care for them to follow. So it's just interesting because it's really watching people reprioritize. But on the flip side, I've seen a couple of kiddos that have amazing growth because, say, both of their parents are now at home. And again, it falls down along an economic divide, which is very sad. It's made the economic divide that much more powerful. And so those kiddos that have both their parents at home or one parent who's exclusively at home, whereas this might have been a daycare kiddo, I mean, some of those kiddos have really blossomed because they are just one-on-one with mom or dad or two parents and one child, those kind of situations. Those kiddos are just really blossoming, and that's super gratifying. And also the technology isn't, it's such a big issue, because any kind of like fragmentation in the video feed or in the audio feed, just wait, what? Rewind, what did you say? And most of the people that I work with, they're working on kind of digital plans, even though my company will provide them with like a hotspot or an iPad. It's usually on a phone that they're running around chasing a kid with, and the digital, the internet signal is not very strong. So it's kind of like, I mean, I've done almost entire visits where I'm looking up at a fan and not a child. Because how hard is it for a parent if the child, I work birth to 3, and so if the child is walking and the parent is trying to follow them around, so you're trying to keep a 2.5-year-old like on this while you're also trying to make sure they don't get into something.
Right.
And so to be a video director, a participant, like the primary participant in treatment, and to manage a child, it's just, we're not octopus. We don't have enough hands to do those things. So
wow, that's a very, very good point that you bring up, because it kind of reminds me of, actually, I'm gonna grab it. I don't know if you used one of these like with your sons when they were children, but this is actually mine from when I was a baby.
Oh, I love those. Those are great.
And so, before our lives were like home, work, school, whatever, we had these nice dividers,
Right.
But now we're all living in here.
Yeah.
And all the juices are mixing and all the ingredients are coming together. And it's like, how do you try to separate this? And like you said, there is this economic divide, this access divide. I feel like the biggest thing we've realized is who actually has access to what when they need it the most.
Yeah.
And it's been like, this whole thing has been eye-opening in terms of what is still lacking from the federal level down to the state level, down to the community level, and just even the individual level.
Yep.
And it's just, everything you said is it's so real, this is everyone's reality right now.
Mm-hmm. Like you definitely get a good feel, when you do a good job and it makes you feel good. And I have a lot of those experiences when I work with my families, especially the families that are primarily Spanish speaking, because I do speak Spanish, and I feel like this is something I can do, whereas they're usually dealing with somebody to translate what the doctor is saying or what the therapist is saying. I can do that. I can be there and I can speak with them and I can understand them. But when you add the extra layer of complexity of dealing with a digital platform and interfacing, speaking in a second language, understanding in a second language, also when there's connectivity challenges, it is very hard. And I feel like I'm not giving them something that is valuable and worthwhile for them to take the time out of the day sometimes.
Now, did you feel the same way, Dr. Tingle, in terms of the ability to provide good instruction?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly, I think the economic reality, again, was when our students are living on campus, they're, at least the curricular needs are level, the playing field is level, right? So if you're a communication major and your parents couldn't afford to buy you Adobe Premiere, it doesn't matter. Adobe Premiere is on every computer. If you need to do the statistical software, it's on every, any program that you need to do anything is on every computer on campus.
Mm-hmm.
So that, that divide, just doesn't exist when you're on campus.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then we have, amazing Wi-Fi all over campus and all that. If you're living on campus, then you're required to have a meal plan. So then you have access to, some people would argue about the quality of the food, but I think it's outstanding.
Yeah.
compared compared to university dining in the early 90s, let me just tell you.
Right. Or just the fact that you can just walk into a room and there's hot food.
Right. You have access to, 3 meals a day. And so then many of our students went home and, didn't have access to 3 meals a day, or like the same things in terms of who they were taking care of siblings, or grandma lives in the house. Our international students, I talked to one of our international students she had an internship in Spain. She's from Venezuela, and in normal circumstances, that would be no problem for us to do. But Trinity, rightfully, canceled any summer study abroad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that means we can't give her course credit because she can't be enrolled in a Trinity class.
Right.
And so then that meant some extra legal hoops that she had to jump through with the Spanish company. And so I'm on the phone with her, and she said, "Oh yeah, well, sorry, I had to miss yesterday's appointment. I had to drive my dad to the hospital because my mom has COVID-19, and we were testing my dad to make sure that he was safe." I'm like, well, okay.
Wow.
So again, so just things like that here's this young lady still trying to figure out what she's going to do the summer between her junior and senior year. And she's a chemistry major, and all the complications of life that every college student feels. But now right here, you're also now having to deal with the medical care of your parents. And if you don't drive your dad to the hospital, there's nobody to drive him.
Yeah, I just feel like everything becomes more immediate and more now. And I remember that was one of the things that Jacob and I were talking about in the beginning, is he was saying, oh yeah, I really want to make sure that those kids that go home don't end up being babysitters to their younger siblings, because that's not fair to them. They're going to miss out completely on the college experience. And I said to him, some of those kids and those families that are the college students and the families they go back to do not have the option of anybody else watching their children. You're talking about people who have you're layering and imagining that everybody has this very robust support safety net and social structure, and many people don't,
because and especially if they have kids of different ages, different grades. And then, some of them are also taking care of special needs, either children or other family members. And it's like the home never had the infrastructure.
Yes, exactly.
To handle all of those different pulls on your attention and your skills. And it's like, and then your employer is like, well, I still need you to continue to deliver the same volume and quality of work as you do when you're in the office. And it's like, something's got to give.
Yeah. Telehealth and telemedicine has been something that has just been really slow to be embraced in the States, but it has been going on, in rural communities, or the communities that are underserved. There have been exceptions made to the rule from face-to-face visits. So, this it like lit a fire and pushed it into happening. There's the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services lifted all sorts of HIPAA guidelines and rules allowing it to happen because they did want to support people staying at home. So, in that respect, it's been great. And so some of our families, like my company is saying, we are going to continue to offer this even once coronavirus goes away. So I think that's going to be good. And I think for some of our families, it's great because who really does want a stranger in their house, telling you what to do with your kids? It's a nice option, right? So for some people, I think they'll continue to do that. For others, I think it's good to be there interacting in person.
But also, there are some of our faculty and some of our staff who, for lots of different reasons, aren't going to be comfortable coming back. And so, we're looking at what our class is going to look like in the fall right now. And there's lots of conversations. There's a task force that's assembled that's looking at that. But some element of it might be, if a faculty member is in one of those, immunocompromised groups, or, from an age standpoint or whatever, wants to teach remotely, well, we can't tell them that you have to come in, right? So that's some of the stuff that they're grappling with, the university administration is grappling with right now. But it used to be like 6 months ago, if one of our employees wanted to work from home, right? It was unbelievable, the hoops that I would have had to jump through. The paperwork, like, are they really going to work? How are you going to make sure they're accountable? All of these kinds of things. And and it was just like on March 11th, it was like, see you later. Like,
there's not really, it wasn't.
It still took about a week for that to happen. Like they were still trying to have, like directors sign forms and like, really? So fortunately, like that didn't take too long, but it is. I mean, it's like my team meets every morning at 9:00 and we lay out our day. And so we have the connectivity. Do I miss having the cup of coffee with them? Of course I do. And I want that to happen as soon as possible. But if one of my team members needs to be at home, even if it's, days at a time or, like that, then I think like that level of freedom and flexibility, I don't foresee that going away. And I think I view that as one real positive outcome.
And that again touches on like, okay, here are the people that are not either as educated or have the right jobs or in the right positions. They're the ones. So they all got hosed.
Choice. They don't have a choice.
They got fired.
Right. Yeah.
They got zero support by their employers or they got let go. And so those that have, again, us, we're very fortunate. We can even demand more flexibility from our employers, and our employers are happy to give it to us because they're, they want to retain.
Yeah. But, on a lighter note, looking forward, what is your hope for you and your family, and even for the community as we emerge out of this lifestyle?
You can answer that.
Okay.
I'll think of something that you can answer first. He's always got something to say.
Yeah, I think, again, maybe even just a greater awareness that the economic divide really impacts people in significant ways. And so if we come out of, and get back to whatever normal is, but then we can all just, again, think a little bit about our own, especially, the privileges that we do, some of us have, right? And how do we make sure that we're cognizant of that not everyone has equal access, and can we continue to work towards that? Like things like healthcare, right? I mean, so, in these just kind of basic human needs. And so that's one thing that I maybe am hopeful for, especially in certain cities. I think San Antonio and our area is one that I think there's just been a heightened, spotlight put on some things that everyone kind of knew already anyway, but it's like, this is a big deal.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think everybody has turned inward, and it has made us reflect on what's really important. And I think most people are deciding, okay, your family, however you define family, is really the foundation. And so it would be great if we could see more social supports and policies and programs that support the families. Although I think that's a pipe dream. I mean, but I think that would be really great, because when it all comes down to it, we are relying on our larger communities, but we're really relying on the people closest to us. However you define family, it is the people in your house. And also then taking that, and instead of judging people all the time, I just have learned to meet the families and the caregivers where they are at. And just really understanding, okay, this is not personal, this is where they are. Their whole priorities have shifted into a different place right now, and I need to be very respectful of that. And when they are ready and able, they will reach out to me again. So maintaining relationships, understanding that, this isn't personal, this is really just, this is business, it's survival for a lot of people.